Welcome to the Dr. Diane Show, where we explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. With over 20 years of expertise as a mindset warrior, perspective shifter, and unshakable optimist, I am dedicated to helping you reach your wildest dreams in business, health, performance, and relationships. Learn about the power of thought and how it shapes your life to take risks, change careers, find love, go on adventures, and live passionately with me, Dr. Diane. Get ready for revolutionary ways of thinking, being, and creating an amazing life. The Dr. Diane Show starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Diane Hayden, and you're listening to the Dr. Diane Show on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour, where we will explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul. Join me on the first and third Thursdays on the Dr. Diane Show, where I have experts from around the country teaching you cutting-edge therapies on longevity medicine, natural health, mindset, and soul purpose to help you shift your perspective and become a mindset warrior like me. And please like and subscribe to my channel, Dr. Diane Hayden. I'm excited today to have Susan Padilla on with me. She is a clinical hypnotherapist and the founder of Hypnosis Haven. She works with clients who are ready to move beyond surface level coping and create deeper, lasting change by accessing the subconscious mind. Her practice supports those navigating anxiety, stress, emotional overwhelm, sleep challenges, habits, and patterns that often persist despite insight, willpower, or traditional approaches. Susanna blends therapeutic hypnosis, guided imagery, nervous system support, and subconscious repatterning to help clients return to a greater sense of calm, confidence, clarity, and self-command. So welcome, Susanna. How are you today?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me, Diane.
Oh, of course, of course. So I love to start these by, just getting a little bit more insight into your journey and kind of what first drew you to hypnosis and hypnotherapy as a healing modality, and then to starting your own clinical practice.
I started, well, it's been 10 years. Actually, this year I'm celebrating 10 years. But I
Congratulations,
started,
that's awesome.
thank you. It is. It happened so fast.
Yeah, it does.
It does. Before, when I was going to school for it, it was because I had seen a hypnotherapist for my own water birth. And I had heard that you can get caught in cycles of breath that can bring back traumas that you might not be aware that you had from your own birth. And I knew my mom had had complications during her labor when she was giving birth to me. So I thought, well, I don't want to trigger something I'm completely unaware of. So I found a local hypnotherapist and I went to see her. And so I already had that connection with it. But as the years passed, and I was an interior designer out in Laguna Beach, California, and I was designing spas and beautiful homes for people. And I saw so much work go into creating these beautiful spaces that were supposed to evoke experiences. But then as soon as people would leave the spa, they'd see that somebody dinged their Mercedes and they'd get really mad. So all of that Zen and
it's gone.
It's gone. And I thought, there has to be a way to make this last. There has to be a way to help people keep this and it not just be a few hours in a spa and then you feel good, but then it goes away. And so the interior design in me kind of just started looking for other ways to do that. And even when I was in school and I was looking at a blank sheet of paper and we're supposed to draw a space, the clients would tell us what they wanted and we had to create it, turn their words into an actual space. And I would look at the sheet and think, we're all blank sheets of paper. And we decide where we put up walls and where we put up windows and how it's going to look. And so it was already a seed in me. And I crossed paths with my hypnotherapist again. And she said, I think you'd be a great hypnotherapist. And I said, how do I know you're not hypnotizing me right now?
Exactly, right?
I absolutely didn't. I was
That's
so
funny.
skeptical. Yeah. I need to think about it. And I went and I thought about it for a few weeks and I came back, I looked into it and I said, I think I could do this because this applies everything that I've learned and accumulated in life, my understanding and perspective of how the mind is, how we are as individuals and how the slightest thing can affect us. So I studied and I excelled. And before I graduated, I was already working as a mentor for the Spanish-speaking students in the school. And in Southern California, it was easy to find 3 locations. So, in no time, I had 3 locations in Southern California. And before I got too settled there, I decided, I'm going to go to Connecticut because there aren't that many hypnotherapists out there. It's beautiful and green. And I've been here since.
Oh,
So
that's
that's
so awesome.
Mhm.
Well, I'm so glad that you wanted to do this show because I think that there's a lot of modalities that we talk about. I interview all different kinds of practitioners and on many things that some people have never even heard of before. But I think pretty much everybody knows about hypnotherapy. But the thing with that is that I feel like people don't really understand how it works. Like I have gone to different hypnotherapists and have done the modality myself, and so I've experienced it and I know what it is, what it isn't. But
Mm-hmm.
I think there's still such a, I don't, maybe anxiety is the right word, like around it, because people are like, oh my God, what is going to happen when I'm
Mm-hmm.
in this session with her? Am I going to be, am I going to wake up and I'm going to have like, no clothes on, or I'm going to be doing crazy things or whatever? And so, like, I love to just debunk all that stuff because what you
Mm-hmm.
see in the shows is not what hypnotherapy is about. So, how do you explain, like what's really happening in a session?
Well, you're in control the entire time. And I always tell my clients in the consultation that the difference between entertainment hypnosis and therapeutic hypnosis. Entertainment hypnosis is real. I'm actually really good friends with a very famous one. We went to school together, and I got to see how he made his craft, as he is an entertainment hypnotist. And it's real and it's fascinating even to me. It's like, how did you make their arms steel? But you can do that, and you can make people do silly things, but he gets the people who want that. And that's the big part of it, is that you want that. You have to want to go to that location and have that experience, just like with therapeutic hypnosis. You kind of have to want it and allow for this to happen. You don't necessarily have to, it's not something you believe in, it's a subconscious process that's already happening. So what's happening when you're in hypnosis is it's like a conversation, or when you get really into a book or a movie and you're so submerged in that world that you see it, you feel it, you're sad when the movie ends, when the book ends, and it was just something in your mind that was happening, a story that was happening. So when you're in hypnosis, you're listening to me, you're in control the whole time, and the experience is just a relaxation. Like, I'm guiding you through the thought process in your mind, whatever it is that you're coming to see me for. We unravel it with your permission. It's always with permission, of course. And it's a nice, relaxing experience, but it's very different. You're not going to lose control. You can move, you can open your eyes. I do have some clients that prefer open eyes therapy, and so we just do it that way. So it's not like the movies make it look. I mean, it's for cinematic purposes, they make it look like that, but
Oh, of
you're in
course.
control.
I
Mhm.
think the best analogy I heard at one time was it's kind of like when you're driving your car and you are like in an area where you drive all the time, let's say, and you're thinking
Mhm.
about something or whatever, and then all of a sudden you realize that you didn't even see the road. Like,
Yeah.
how did I get from this stoplight to wherever I am? Because you were
Mhm.
like deep in thought, and it's like your subconscious is doing the role of driving. I mean, you're driving still. It's not like you're not
Exactly.
awake or anything, but it's, yeah, and I was like, wow, that really makes a lot of sense because obviously I am coherent and I have the ability to drive the car. I didn't drive off the road or whatever, nothing happened. But yet
Mhm.
I was so deep in thought or whatever, I was doing, that I missed like a section of the road.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That's environmental hypnosis. So people do fall into hypnosis throughout the day at different times. There's the natural hypnosis, just it's that line between waking up and staying asleep, just when you're starting to wake up and you're not fully awake. That's when you start programming yourself for the day. I'm going to have a bad day. Oh, it's
Mm-hmm.
Monday. Oh, I have to do this today. And so those are your automatic hypnosis times. Also, usually around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, a lot of people have the mental capacity. They've reached their limit and now they're just on autopilot and they're just zombified, is a term I hear often. They're
Yep.
just, they have that mental crash. And that is another good time where I tell my clients to listen to their recordings, because that's when the critical mind, the conscious mind is overwhelmed, and you're going to start to go into a natural state of hypnosis, and whatever you're listening to, whatever you are around is going to influence you. And then at bedtime also. But yes, the environmental hypnosis, that is how stage hypnotists can tell who to call on stage also. Because when you're
Very
looking out on
interesting.
a crowd, you can see who's about to go into hypnosis naturally just from their own life and their thought processes, how overwhelmed they are. And you're not going to call up somebody who's completely alert and in control of their thoughts onto stage to make you look bad. You're going to call the person who's already in a high state of natural hypnosis.
Wow, that's amazing.
Mm.
I also wanted to just ask before we get too far into the show, like I'm guessing you can see people virtually. Do you
Mhm.
do that, or do you prefer to see people in person, or how do you work that way?
I do most virtually because my clientele has expanded from local markets to, I have a lot of clients in Europe right now, London and UK, California, a lot in Florida. I've had clients in India, especially for the stroke recovery work that I do too. So I have a lot of people from around the world that are looking for help with that. But I do miss the in-person ones, and so for some of the local people, I'll do house calls, and we can do that too. So that's nice every now and then to just get in and be with the client. Because you can
Oh, yeah.
see things. Yeah, you
Yeah.
release. Yeah, as you release, sometimes people hold emotion in their body, and like a leg will jolt, an arm, something like they'll release whatever they were holding in the body. And I can see that better, and I can see their breath get a little slower, better in person. I can still see it online, but I do miss that, seeing the nuances and the little releases that happen.
Right, right. Yeah. So for people that are in Connecticut, obviously that might be an in-person thing. And if people
Hmm.
are who are listening to the show are all over the country, the world actually, then they can see you virtually, which is a great, option as well. And
Hmm.
we're going to talk about, all kinds of things in terms of, who are the type of people you typically treat. And I remember now that we talked a while ago about that you work with stroke patients and things like that. So
Hmm.
we'll get into some of that and just, how hypnosis can help people with, confidence and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm excited to explore further with you. I think that this has been going to be great in terms of just helping people really get a better handle on what hypnotherapy is and how you work and all of that. So we'll definitely get all of that. I'll get into all of that, but we're going to go for a quick break. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. When we come back, we'll be exploring more with Susanna Padilla. She's a clinical hypnotherapist and founder of Hypnosis Haven. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. But before we continue, I want to make sure everyone knows how to contact me. You can find me at www.drdianehayden.com or at either of my two publications, www.naturalnutmeg.com and www.essentialnaples.com. And you can learn more about my guest today, Susanna Padilla, at her website, which is www.hypnosis-haven.com, and that's spelled Hypnosis dash HAVEN.com. So before we just went to break, we were just talking about all the different, things that you treat with hypnotherapy and what can be treated with that. But before we get into, talking about those things, I wanted to just maybe clarify a little bit more with people about how does hypnosis help access the subconscious mind in a way that ordinary conversation may not? And the reason I'm asking that question is because I'm thinking of the person who's looking at hypnotherapy as a modality versus probably like just traditional psychotherapy, right?
Hmm. Yes. Well, ordinary conversation stays in the critical conscious mind. And the conscious mind is good for a lot of things because it helps analyze and explain our lives, and it helps us figure things out. But it also tries to justify why we do the things, and it tries to argue, or it stays guarded, and it won't go into the subconscious. It won't go into the root of why they're in therapy because it's going to judge it, or it's going to say the therapist is judging me. So there's a lot of that inner chatter that is the part of the problem that keeps them from getting to the core. And usually the sessions are about 40-ish minutes, I think, and it's not enough time to really get comfortable and start to unpack and then really get into the nitty-gritty of the reasons and the things without going through the judging, the inner monologue, all those things. So the subconscious is there, but it can't come out. And when you're in hypnotherapy, hypnosis, the whole process of relaxing and getting the body to be calm and comfortable, or calm and relaxed, that's part of it, is knowing which word the client prefers, because some people cannot stand the word relaxed. So you have to know how to speak to them.
Right.
And so when we quiet that mental noise in that comfortable state, then we can start to allow the subconscious mind to speak. And the subconscious doesn't speak the way you and I speak. It will give you a picture, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. And in hypnotherapy, it truly is. So you're going to see a picture, an image of a dress, of a tree, of a place, of a mug. It could be anything. And then that one image begins to tell the whole story that's surrounded around that memory, the imprint that's in the subconscious mind, and what decisions were made. So we get to touch on what happened at that moment, what feelings, what was decided, because we make decisions for our whole life as children. That's one of the big reasons for when I have smoking clients. I have kids, I mean, they were kids, they were 9, 10, 12 years old when they started smoking. Here they are in their 60s and they can't quit, because as children, they made a decision. This is what we do in my family. This is how the women do this. This is how the men do this. And so that decision is made at a pivotal time in their developmental stages, and they can't quit no matter how much willpower they have, because there's a subconscious root that's really stuck in there saying, no, we said we were going to do this and we're sticking to it. So
Yeah, so
that is
interesting.
something you get in hypnosis. It's the image, it's the root, it's quieting all the noise, and the subconscious is listening the whole time. So I tell the client sometimes, okay, you count backwards from 100 down to 0 at a very slow pace. And while you do that, I'm going to speak to the subconscious mind. And so that kind of, okay, your conscious mind is focused on counting backwards, but I'm speaking to the subconscious mind, and then I'll ask a question while the conscious mind is counting, and then the subconscious mind will answer. And then, they say whatever comes up, because that's what the subconscious wants to be known. It wants, okay, tell Susanna this. And then now we've got it. So you can't do that with regular talk therapy.
No, not at all. Not at all. So fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me what kinds of like typically who is drawn to see you and what kinds of issues do you work with? I mean, obviously you mentioned smoking. We talked about, stroke patients and things like that. But generally it sounds like anxiety is something that you see a lot of in your practice. And like what kinds of anxiety related issues are you commonly seeing?
I usually see the clients are people who don't want to do medications because they're already on enough, or they prefer a natural path. And so, they start looking for other ways to handle anxiety. But there's social anxiety, there's anxiety around smoking, there's test anxiety. I mean, it's like pick a word and add anxiety to it. Now it's like they come in so many ways now. Anxiety tends to be the fear of the unknown. So whatever it is, it's public speaking. They don't know how it's going to go. So now they have anxiety about that. Performance anxiety. So anxiety is a huge one because it has so many variations of presenting itself now. And the anxiety, when it's prolonged, what happens then are other things that I help clients with. So IBS, especially for kids, when they're around school, separation anxiety with their parents. So, I do see kids around 9, 10 years old, to help them when they have a little bit of anxiety around school. But I tend to see more adults, anywhere from housewives to executives, because it affects people in all walks of life. It's not something that is only to one socioeconomic status or one role. It's moms, it's dads, it's college students, it's people that are retired. It's for everybody, unfortunately. And this is a nice, gentle way to help them, because when they have anxiety for too long, it can become agoraphobia. It can become irritable bowel syndrome. It can affect reproductive issues. For men, it will create ED. It's one of those things that if it goes on for too long, the nervous system will start to shut down certain functions because you're technically in a state of fight flight, is what anxiety is. And if you're in a state of fight flight for too long, then your body's not going to say, we need to properly digest that delicious steak that we had for dinner. It's going to just hurry up and get it through because it needs to be in self-preservation mode. And what we're fighting in the days of primitive man, it used to be that man was being attacked by something. There was a creature, there was something. You
Saber-toothed
knew.
tiger.
That's what we always say.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
But we don't have those nowadays.
No, we don't. But it used to be something that you saw was coming at you. You knew when you were in danger and the danger would subside and you can be at peace. And I always give clients the visual of saying, in those days, imagine 4 cavemen and there's a big bush kind of blocking their line of sight and they all hear a noise. One of them gets ready to fight. One of them takes off and starts running. The other one is just going to play dead. And this is how we respond to our stressors now. But the stressors don't end. The stressors are bills, it's work, it's children, it's school, it's home life. And it's our thought process that get caught in a hamster wheel is something a lot of clients come to see me for, is they're stuck in that wheel. So when that is constant and it doesn't stop, then it starts affecting sleep. It starts affecting all these things because the mind, the brain is thinking we're under attack. We can't sleep. Don't sleep deeply because we're under attack, but your bills aren't going to come knocking on the door. I mean, sometimes they do, but they don't typically come. They don't typically come. It's your thoughts that are attacking you, and they don't stop at 5 o'clock. They don't stop for any reason until they're resolved. And sometimes these things can't be resolved in life, and you just have to learn to live with it. And then you repress it. And then that then starts to create depression. It starts to create a state of apathy and what we call hypersuggestibility, which is when you are going to start to believe everything you're told. And now you're walking around in a constant state of uncontrolled hypnosis. And that's where TV, social media, and those influences start to become a real problem because it's never good. It's just going to make you feel bad because you don't look like this person who has all these filters on, to make themselves look a certain way. So you're walking around basically in an open and unprotected state of hypnosis because of that prolonged state of anxiety. So that's why I think it's so prevalent, because of just the way social media is now, and it has never been like that in all of our time.
Oh, absolutely. And not only the things that, the interactions and experiences that you have with other people are also from like social media or things online, but also the things that you tell yourself. Like
Yeah.
I've told this story a million times of what happened to me personally. I had, a couple of years ago, I started having like just weird heart palpitations well, I'm going to say out of nowhere, but of course it didn't come out of nowhere. I was under stress, but I'm the kind of person that's like, oh, I'm not a stressed out person. I was dealing with all this stuff with my mom, and sure enough, I was under stress, just didn't really see it. But I had all these things like tachycardia and PVCs and all this stuff. And as I paid more attention to it and thought about it more, of course, it got worse until it was like happening every day. And I had gone and done all the testing and there was nothing wrong, structurally or functionally. Basically, they're like, yeah, well, you're at a certain age, so this is what happens to some women.
Gosh, yes.
Nothing we could do for you, blah, blah, blah. Well, I mean, I ended up working with coaches and integrative. I didn't think about hypnotherapy, but what a great, I mean, I would do that in a heartbeat again. But my integrative cardiologist is really amazing as far as like just the techniques that he had. And he got me to a place where I just, stopped worrying about it, stopped focusing on it. And if I felt it, to just like move on, and just with all these different skills. But yeah, it's also the things that we tell ourselves, right? Like,
exactly.
You could be, you could keep yourself in a perpetual state of anxiety just by listening to, the crazy thoughts that are going on in your mind all the time about all kinds of stuff. Like it's just, that's the thing. So
Exactly.
you kind of get bombarded from all sides for sure. And so
Yeah.
I could see how this is just such a wonderful, therapy and another way to,
Hmm.
to work with someone like you to help people move past this. And we're going to talk a little bit more about, the different things that you do, what's it like to experience a session,
Hmm.
other issues that you work with. And we're going to go
Hmm.
to a quick break right now. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. When we come back, we'll be exploring more with Susanna Padilla. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden, and I'm talking today with Susanna Padilla. Her website is www.hypnosis-haven.com. That's spelled HYPNOSIS-HAVEN.com. And just before we went to break, we were just talking about the different, anxiety related issues that you commonly see in your practice and how you treat these different situations for people. And I wanted to just back up for a second because we kind of talked through like what is hypnotherapy and helping people understand what it is, what it isn't. But I think
Hmm.
it might be helpful for you to kind of walk us through like what does a typical session feel like for somebody who's never experienced hypnosis before?
It feels normal. And that's the funny thing is
Great
because
word.
people, I
Yeah,
know, well, that's that word is subjective, but
yeah.
it feels just like relaxing. More often, people will come out of hypnosis, and I use that phrase lightly now because once you experience a session, then you realize that you were actually in hypnosis this whole time, going through life, like you said, driving and getting home without realizing how you got there. You're on autopilot. When you go into a therapeutic hypnosis session, then you basically go behind the curtain and now you get to see why you think the way you think, why you do what you do, how to stop, how to start, how to change everything. And now you come out feeling like you just took a nice nap. Some people say it feels like meditation. It's very relaxing. I have had clients that have aches and pains that they didn't even tell me about before we started. And then when we come out, they say, this is the longest I've been able to lay down because I've had these back pains that won't let me rest and
Wow.
I won't even know it. But because I'm getting them so relaxed in the process, all the pain goes away. It's like you don't feel your body, you just feel so relaxed and your thoughts are nice and you're thinking about your errands and you're just like, oh yeah, she said what? And so, it's going to happen because the critical mind is constantly thinking. And I make people laugh because I say it's okay if you remember you left stuff in your Target shopping cart online. It'll still be there because you will think about those things while you're in hypnosis. And like I said earlier, the subconscious mind is listening the whole time. So what it feels like is the funny part because people expect to feel like what they see on the stage hypnotist, on the stage hypnosis where people are lumped over in the chair. We don't need to go that deep. You don't
Right.
really need deep trance. Even when I'm doing like pre-surgery hypnosis, we still don't need to go that deep. It's just a matter of really getting the body relaxed and listening and allowing for this process to take place. Even when we're doing hypnosis for birth, for labor and childbirth, you don't need to go deep. You just have to know how to access the quiet, calm parts of the mind. And so we kind of stay on the lighter levels, not necessarily so deep. So when they're done with the session, after it just feels like we play with time too. Sometimes, I'll say it'll feel like 30 minutes have gone by, but it'll have been 2 hours, so
Yeah.
you can play with time and that's neat. And it's just relaxation, breathing, a little bit of conversation, and then you come out and you feel lighter. People feel more relaxed, and that feeling lasts for days, sometimes for years. It just depends what we were working on.
Yeah, I love that you said meditation because that was my experience exactly. It felt like I was in, just a meditation and,
Hmm.
it's super relaxed, almost like I could fall asleep, but you don't. And
Hmm.
or maybe some people do. I didn't, but it
Some
was
people do.
yeah, it was super relaxing and just like I had just done like a really amazing meditation.
Hmm. That's what it feels like. Yeah, and so that's the thing. Somebody had commented on a video on YouTube that they don't sound hypnotized. When you're asking somebody questions and they're in hypnosis, some people will whisper and some people will speak in the same volume of voice, just like you and I are, because I'll tell them the sound of your own voice will keep you in hypnosis. So you're not going to come out of hypnosis because you're speaking now. You will be able to maintain that level and speak, because sometimes we got to ask questions. I have to ask, ask the subconscious mind to bring up an image that represents this habit, that represents this emotion. So you need to speak to me while you're in hypnosis, and you'll be able to speak. And if you don't sound hypnotized, you don't look hypnotized, you don't feel it. It's just relaxed. You're just relaxing with your eyes closed. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So back to anxiety for a second. I remember that when I was having all these, different like heart rhythm issues, it was so difficult for me to feel like, to logically think that I'm safe, that nothing is, I'm not having a heart attack, like nothing bad is going to happen. And I knew, I guess my brain knew logically that all the tests have been done. There's no other tests they're going to do. There's nothing like physically, I mean, it was a physical thing, but there's nothing, quote, wrong here. But yet I couldn't get to the point where, initially, I couldn't get to the point where I felt like I couldn't just stop that emotional response. It took me a long time and practice to not freak out every time I felt something. And so, like, why is it that, if we logically know, like, what's causing this anxiety, how is it, why is it so difficult, I guess, or why can't we stop that emotional response?
Because anxiety isn't a thought. It's not a thought problem, even though, yes, our thoughts are kind of why we are in that problem. It's the out of control thoughts. So it's more of a body response. It's the nervous system. It's the subconscious association. That is a big one. Because, like I mentioned earlier, in childhood, we have these imprints. And so it might have been a misunderstanding, but it still left an imprint. So now here we are years later, and there's something that reminds us, and there's something that fear is triggered, or something, a fear of loss, especially when we get to that part where, okay, our parents are getting older. So now it's going to start to bring up memories of our childhood and perhaps some separation anxiety that we might have experienced as children. So what we are living, and we know logically, okay, this is what's happening. This is a part of life. This is the cycle. But there was an imprint about separation in our childhood that now is making this completely normal process become completely irrational. I know it doesn't make sense. I know this is a process, but this is how I'm processing it, because there's a subconscious association, there's a pattern. And these things affect the nervous system. It affects the way that the heart's going to beat, our digestion. So all of these things will fall down the line and with those things. And I had a similar situation like yours. It was about 20 years ago. I was in an emergency room, and I had stress, because I had incurred a huge debt. And I was like, oh no, how am I going to pay this? I was in between jobs, and I was not used to having that kind of stress. And I ended up in the emergency room, and they said, you're too young for this, and they ran all the tests, and they do bring up age a lot. You're of an age, so therefore this, otherwise you're too young. So
Right.
I don't know what a sweet spot is for that, but they said you're too young for this. And they ran all the tests, which it was nice, because that helped me to know, okay, there's nothing wrong with me, but they couldn't find anything. And I went to see an acupuncturist. I had a wonderful acupuncturist in California. And he said, these are feelings. You need to learn to cope with your stress. You need to stop thinking. And I didn't know about hypnotherapy back then, because it's like, how do you stop thinking?
Right.
These are the, and like, I need to.
Yeah, it's like, you physically feel something, you're going to think,
Exactly. And there are people who need to think their way out of a problem. And that's kind of where things get a little out of hand, and it becomes that hamster wheel of thought, because at one point in our lives, we might have had a problem that we really thought about how to solve it. And so the subconscious mind remembered, oh, remember you had that problem and you thought your way out of it? Let's throw in a lot of thought now into this problem. You got a big problem. Let's throw a lot of thought into this. And so the anxiety begins to build, and then the nervous system goes right into that fight flight, and here you go. So then that's where it's not a thinking problem. It's about an association. And that's where the subconscious comes in, where I teach the clients, okay, let's clear that out. Let's establish inner calm. That is my favorite thing to help. This is where I do the interior design now, is we create that inner serene, calm, relaxed place, whatever you want it to be, whether it's an actual place, a place you've seen in magazines, a place that you've dreamt of. It can be whatever you want it to be, indoors, outdoors, modern, rustic, whatever. But that inner sanctuary is with you always. So when life is coming at you and all those thoughts won't stop, I tell my clients, go sit in that chair in your mind. Take a few deep breaths, go to that place and just let it pass. And that's how you can stop thinking about it, because now you're thinking about your inner place, that inner space of calm. And now you're more focused on that. And the subconscious mind remembers how you felt when you were in session with me. And now that becomes the baseline, that becomes the association. And it's better than it was before. And the more you practice it, the more you visit that mental place, the more that becomes your place from which you respond to life, because now you're not in a reacting, overthinking place. Now you're calm and you're more clear and you're more precise with what you're saying, because it's not a matter of fight, flight, and let me hurry up and think my way out of this. Now you're calm. And that's a beautiful thing, to be calm from the inside, no matter what's going on around you.
Yeah, and it takes practice. I mean,
Mhm.
I got much so much better. Can I say that, like, I don't ever feel any kind of, weird heart rhythm? Of course not. It still happens. But
Mhm.
now I'm like, oh, okay, I notice it. And I'm able to just kind of be like, okay, well, that's just what my heart does. And who knows? It
Mhm.
could be because maybe I need more water today, or, I'm pretty
Mhm.
good with my electrolytes and my supplements and all the stuff that could
Mhm.
be, potentially causing it. But who knows? Maybe I needed more, whatever, magnesium today, or what, and that's why it did it.
Yeah.
And every single time now I've been able to just, if I feel it and I think exactly like what I just said, okay, that's just what it does. It's
Mhm.
gone. It does it once and it's gone. Like,
Mhm.
but you're right, it's a practice, actually. And I think that, you know coming to you to help people get into that state and feel like what that state is so imperative. And then you teach them, basically,
Mhm.
this is how you get into that mindset.
Yeah.
And give them opportunities to practice. And do, obviously, I'm sure you see people for different lengths of time based on what the issue is, and how quickly they adapt and that kind of thing. But it's an
Mhm.
ongoing thing. Like, I'm not going to say, oh, I just didn't have to think about it anymore. It's an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
But with
It just had to
with
stop.
yes, exactly. But with the skills that and the tools that you teach, and we're going to talk about that when we come back from the next break. I want to talk a little bit about, like, how you help people once they're working with you and moving on. So we'll get into that in a little bit. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a short break, and we will be right back with Susanna Padilla. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. You can learn more about me at my website, which is www.drdianehayden.com. And I'm talking today with Susanna Padilla, and she is a clinical hypnotherapist and founder of Hypnosis Haven in Connecticut. And her website is www.hypnosis-haven.com. That's spelled HYPNOSIS-HAVEN.com. So I wanted to make sure that we touched on, when you're working with someone, what are the tools or techniques that you teach them basically that they can learn through hypnosis that they can use outside of a session? And also, I'm going to ask this question. I know it's like you're going to have to generalize a little bit, but typically how long does somebody work with you for? Is it like a number of sessions or weeks or months? And I know it's going to depend on what their issue is that you're dealing with, but just kind of give us like a general guideline.
Mhm. Well, for the tools that we use, as I mentioned, creating that inner space inside, that is a big one. A lot of, I think, well, we always establish that. We have to establish the calm. And I mean, it's one of those things, one of my favorite things to do in hypnosis is to get them really calm and then try to get them to bring up their anxiety. And then they realize that you can't have both in the same place. And so it's called a double bind. And I'll say the harder you try, the harder it becomes, but try anyway. And so, so
Yeah.
they try to be anxious, but they can't. And then they go deeper into that. And so that association, because the body is creating imprints while they're in session. So that is already an automatic tool that they take with them is that association and feeling that feeling of calm. So the brain is going to do what it does and it's going to try to recreate that level of calm all the time because it feels good and it wants it more. So it's going to try to keep that. So the breath is, of course, that's an obvious one. And even before I got into hypnotherapy, when I would have anxiety attacks, I learned that if you get one of those little Himalayan salt inhalers, and the reason why I felt that it worked was because you're focusing now on changing your breath pattern, which has been with you your whole life. You never have to think about breathing, it just happens. But now you have this object you're holding, so you've given yourself something tactile and you're breathing in a different way. And now you're getting those little bits of salt to taste also. So now you're focused on this in, oh, wait, did I do it right? And so now you've changed it and you're not thinking about whatever it was that was causing the anxiety. So, I suggest they use those tools and just the breathing, the 3 deep breaths. We always start the session with 3 deep breaths, and that helps also create the association of, okay, when I take 3 deep breaths, my mind is going to this calm place. The therapeutic imagery, the guided imagery, so everything that they see in this inner world in their mind helps them. I still keep many memories in my mind of places that my clients have described to me, things that they've seen, their own private places in their mind, their own oasis. It's beautiful because it only exists in their mind. And then when they tell me this is what I'm seeing, it's pretty neat to see that. And then while they're in hypnosis, also we do what's called future rehearsal. And it's creating new imprints and seeing yourself in that state, how you want to be, how you see yourself responding out to the world. What's a typical day look like for you? So a lot of it is imagery, and that's therapeutic imagery is also part of what I do in hypnosis. And it's creating these places and these experiences in the mind so that the brain now starts to release these really good chemicals that says, I want that feeling again. And because the imagination, the brain can't tell the difference between what's real and imagined, it's going to believe it was real because you saw yourself and you saw how you moved, how you were smiling, how you were dressed, everything as if you were experiencing that kind of life. And now your brain, your mind are going to work together to recreate that. So it's really fascinating. And that's where the next question of time comes in. Everyone is different. Some people listen to the recordings because they do get recordings of the sessions. I forgot to mention that. And that helps reinforce the work. So if we have a session once a month, it might take a while. If we have sessions, once every few weeks and you're listening to the recordings in between, it can go by faster and you might need less time. Of course, it all depends on what you're seeing me for. But I tell all my clients the goal is to make you self-reliant and to help you help yourself, because I don't want the client to be dependent on me and having to book a session because they feel something is overwhelming them. If that's the case, then I'm not doing this right. So it doesn't take long. One of my most severe anxiety clients was this young lady from a local town who did not want to take medication. So the local doctor said, go see Susanna. And she came to see me, and she had just started a new job. She had just graduated from college. I mean, it's this, peak stress time of life.
Mhm.
And she wanted to enjoy the summer here with her family, and they had gone out to the lake, and the anxiety hit her so bad. She was shaking. She had to get down on the ground because she was scared she was going to fall off the docks. It was a very severe case of anxiety. She couldn't eat the food. She'd keep dropping it. I mean, poor girl was really overwhelmed. And we ended up doing 2 sessions. So, I mean, it doesn't take a long time. And it almost feels like it's the pendulum. The higher you are on the anxiety level, the lower you're going to come down when I tell you to relax and to go to that place of serenity. So it doesn't have to take a long time. When I was doing my clinical residency, they said, typically it's 6 sessions, and it just depends what we're working on. Sometimes it's complex. It's not necessarily, I want to quit smoking and that's it. Sometimes the cigarette is a coping mechanism for stress, for rage, for anxiety, for depression. So it's like all of these things that are intertwined. And so as we work through one thing and something else comes up, then I'm going to help the client with that too. I'm not going to just leave them hanging like, oh, well, sorry, you were only seeing me for smoking cessation. Too bad with that rage.
Yeah,
So,
probably need to address that.
Yeah, exactly. And I like to wrap it up in a session. I don't say, well, we'll touch on this next week. No, it's like, I'm going to help you before we wrap up the session. We might go over 10 minutes, but I'm going to help you. And that's why it's kind of hard to gauge it. But typically it's sessions once a week. And I mean, it's 3 sessions. Like I said, it just depends. But like when I'm doing weight management clients, we start weekly and then we go to every other week and then every 3 weeks, because I want them to know that they can count on me. I'm there for them throughout the whole process. But in the beginning, it can be difficult because they're dealing with self-sabotage. They're dealing with family members that will sabotage their success. Also, that is a real unfortunate reality for my weight loss clients. And then it's just changing daily habits. So we need a more frequent reinforcement. And then once they get the hang of it and they have the recordings, then we space it out. So it's not a long time.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is amazing. I mean, and also the fact that you treat things like, we mentioned this briefly, and this could be a whole nother show, like, you work with stroke patients and you work with, men who have ED. And I think those are things that I wanted to mention that before we have to finish up real quick, because I think people would never even think about hypnotherapy for something like that. So
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that we definitely touched on that and let people know that there's I mean, honestly, to me, it's like anything, anything that you have, any kind of ongoing issue, anxiety, even a health issue. I feel like this helps so many things because it's working with your subconscious and your nervous system, and anything that can take stress out is going to be a positive across so many different things that you might be dealing with. So
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
I love what you do. I think it's amazing. I think if anybody out there is still skeptical, to just, contact you and meet you,
Mhm.
and, just, I know it's so like non-invasive and easy and relaxing. Just try it, right?
No. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just going to relax you. At the very least, you'll be relaxed
Yeah.
or
Well,
calm.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us, and all the great work that you do, for sure. And again, people can find you at www.hypnosis-haven.com.
Mhm.
And I want to thank all of you for tuning into the show. Please join me the first and third Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern and 8 a.m. Pacific. I will see you back here next time. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show, revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Tune in every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on transformationtalkradio.com. Center your thoughts on what you want and shut the door on every suggestion of fear, worry, or lack from your own consciousness or the consciousness around you. Once you master that, everything is possible. To learn more about me, Dr. Diane, and receive a free digital subscription of my magazine, visit naturalnutmeg.com.